It was the kind of town where everyone knew your name, where the loudest drama was the occasional PTA scandal. But everything changed on a crisp October morning when the lifeless body of 16-year-old Emily Carter was discovered in the woods on the outskirts of town. Emily's body was found by a jogger, partially concealed by a pile of leaves near an old hiking trail. Her hands were bound, and there were bruises on her neck, suggesting strangulation. She was still dressed in her school uniform, a tragic reminder of how ordinary her day had started. The news sent shockwaves through the town. Emily was well loved, a straight-A student, a member of the debate team, and a volunteer at the local animal shelter. The question wasn't just who would want to hurt her, but why. Detectives quickly got to work, retracing Emily's final steps. She had last been seen leaving school the day before, her backpack slung casually over one shoulder. Her phone had gone dark just hours later, its signal last pinging from the edge of the woods. The case captured national attention almost immediately. The police held a press conference within 24 hours, urging the public to come forward with any information. But the investigation was about to take some startling turns, revealing secrets about Emily and the people around her that no one could have imagined. The first person of interest was Ryan Keller, Emily's boyfriend. Ryan, a year older than Emily, was known for his temper. Friends described their relationship as tumultuous, with frequent arguments. Ryan claimed he had nothing to do with her death, insisting he was at home playing video games all night. But when detectives examined his alibi, they found inconsistencies. Ryan's car had been spotted near the woods around the time Emily disappeared. Then there was Laura Bennett, Emily's best friend, or so she claimed. Laura was the last person to see Emily alive, saying they had parted ways after school. But texts retrieved from Emily's phone told a different story. Their messages from that afternoon were laced with tension, hinting at a major fallout. One chilling text from Emily read, "I can't believe you would do this to me. You're supposed to be my friend." Finally, there was Mr. Collins, the school's janitor. Collins was a quiet man in his late 40s, known for keeping to himself. He had a criminal record, an assault charge from a decade earlier, and several students reported seeing him near the woods around the time Emily vanished. When questioned, Collins appeared nervous, fumbling through his answers. 3 suspects, 3 motives, and a web of lies that was about to unravel. The autopsy revealed a shocking detail. Emily had been drugged before her death. Detectives searched Ryan's car and found a small baggie of pills in the glove compartment. Ryan admitted they were his, but denied giving any to Emily. She didn't even like taking Tylenol, he insisted. Meanwhile, Laura's story began to crumble. Surveillance footage from a nearby gas station showed her driving past the woods at 8:30 p.m., just an hour before Emily's phone went dark. Laura initially denied being in the area, but later confessed she had gone to clear her head. As for Mr. Collins, a search of his home turned up a disturbing collection of photos of Emily and other students. Most were innocent enough, group shots from school events. But some were taken without their knowledge, zoomed in from a distance. Collins claimed he was just a photography enthusiast, but detectives weren't convinced. Then came the game changer. Emily's phone was recovered near the crime scene, buried under leaves. Its data revealed she had dialed 911 moments before her death. Though the call had never connected, the timestamp narrowed the timeline of her murder and pointed to someone she had been running from. Ryan's temper finally boiled over during his second interrogation. "You think I'd hurt her?" he shouted. "I loved her more than anything." But as detectives pressed him, he revealed something unexpected. Emily had been planning to break up with him. Ryan admitted to following her into the woods that night to confront her, but swore she was alive when he left. Laura, on the other hand, grew increasingly evasive. Detectives discovered she had been secretly dating Ryan, a betrayal that Emily had uncovered just days before her death. When confronted with this, Laura broke down. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she sobbed, but she stopped short of confessing to murder. The real shock came from Mr. Collins. During his third interview, he suddenly blurted out, "I didn't kill her, but I saw who did." He described seeing Ryan and Laura arguing with Emily in the woods that night. But why had he waited so long to come forward? Collins claimed he feared being implicated due to his criminal past. The case seemed to be closing in on Ryan and Laura, until a new piece of evidence emerged that changed everything. Emily's autopsy revealed a small fragment of fabric under her fingernails, matching the janitor's uniform Mr. Collins had worn that night. When confronted, Collins's demeanor shifted. He confessed to following Emily into the woods after overhearing her argument with Laura. He claimed he only wanted to check on her, but when she resisted his approach, he panicked. The court case that followed revealed the grim truth. Mr. Collins had drugged Emily to subdue her, but claimed her death was an accident when he tried to silence her screams. His claim of panic did little to sway the jury. He was convicted of second-degree murder. As for Ryan and Laura, they faced charges for obstruction of justice. Their toxic love triangle had led to Emily's vulnerability that night, but they hadn't committed the ultimate act. Emily's story is a haunting reminder of how layered human motives can be and how a seemingly perfect life can hide unimaginable pain. This has been the story of Emily Carter, a girl whose light was extinguished too soon. May her memory inspire us to protect the most vulnerable among us.
Jonah Davis was just 6 years old when he entered the foster system, his small hands clutching a teddy bear that looked more worn than his spirit. His biological parents were deemed unfit due to substance abuse, and Jonah, a bright and curious boy, was placed with the Bakers, a seemingly kind, middle-class couple with no children of their own. From the outside, the Bakers appeared to be the perfect foster parents, pillars of their tight-knit suburban community. But as we would come to learn, appearances can be deceiving. It was a brisk autumn evening when Jonah was found lifeless in his bedroom, his fragile body marked with bruises and scars that told a story of prolonged suffering. The Bakers claimed to have discovered him unresponsive, dialing 911 in hysterics. Their story was simple. Jonah had taken a tragic fall down the stairs earlier that day, but they had no idea it would lead to his death. But something about their story didn't sit right. The bruises were too numerous, the injuries too severe. Detectives were immediately suspicious. Jonah's death wasn't an accident, it was a homicide. And so the investigation began. But the deeper detectives dug, the darker Jonah's world became. As the news of Jonah's death spread, the once idyllic neighborhood turned into a circus of speculation. The Bakers, Mary and Robert, were the first suspects. They were responsible for Jonah's care, after all. But during questioning, their stories were chillingly calm. Mary, a schoolteacher, claimed to have been grading papers during the alleged fall. Robert, an accountant, said he had been out running errands. Then, a new name entered the fray. Alan Green, the neighbor across the street. Alan was known to help around the Baker household, often mowing their lawn or watching Jonah when the Bakers were busy. But something about his behavior after Jonah's death raised eyebrows. Witnesses reported seeing him pacing his front yard, muttering to himself. Finally, there was Rebecca Hart, Jonah's biological mother. Though she had lost custody, Rebecca had been trying to regain her parental rights. She had a history of volatility and had been spotted near the Baker's home days before Jonah's death. Did she snap, driven by the pain of losing her child? 3 suspects, 3 motives, and one innocent boy whose voice would never be heard again. The autopsy report revealed shocking details. Jonah's injuries were not consistent with a fall. He had broken ribs, internal bleeding, and defensive wounds, signs of a violent struggle. The time of death also contradicted the Baker's timeline. Detectives searched the Baker's home and found troubling evidence. In the basement, they discovered a small, dark room with a padlock on the outside. Inside were a worn mattress, a single blanket, and a pile of broken toys. Was this where Jonah had been kept? Mary claimed it was a timeout room, a last resort for disciplining Jonah when he misbehaved. Alan Green's home search turned up something equally disturbing, a collection of photographs of Jonah, taken without the Baker's knowledge. Alan said he was simply documenting signs of neglect to report to authorities, but the detectives couldn't shake the uneasy feeling his story left behind. Rebecca Hart was elusive. When questioned, she broke down in tears, claiming she had never harmed her son and only wanted to reunite with him. But when detectives checked her phone records, they found an incriminating text. "I'll do whatever it takes to get him back. They don't deserve him." The case seemed to stall as all three suspects continued to deny their involvement. Then, a chilling discovery turned the case upside down. A neighbor's security camera had captured a shadowy figure entering the Bakers' home the night Jonah died. The footage was grainy, but the outline suggested it was a man. Alan Green became the prime suspect. He had no alibi for the night of Jonah's death and had a history of mental instability. But Alan dropped a bombshell during interrogation. He claimed to have seen Robert Baker physically abuse Jonah on multiple occasions. Detectives confronted Robert, who initially denied everything. But under pressure, he admitted to disciplining Jonah harshly, blaming stress and frustration. Still, Robert insisted he didn't kill Jonah. Meanwhile, Mary Baker's calm demeanor began to crack. Detectives found inconsistencies in her story, particularly about her whereabouts the day Jonah was allegedly locked in the basement. And then came the final twist. Alan wasn't lying about Robert's abuse, but he wasn't the killer. Mary's fingerprints were found on the padlock to the basement room. The timeline showed that she had been home when Jonah suffered his fatal injuries. When pressed, Mary broke down, confessing in a whisper, "I just wanted him to behave. I didn't mean for it to go that far." Mary Baker was charged with second-degree murder, child abuse, and false imprisonment. Robert Baker, though complicit, was charged as an accessory after the fact. Alan Green was cleared of all charges, though his obsession with Jonah would haunt him and the community for years. Rebecca Hart was left to mourn the son she had lost, her efforts to reunite with Jonah thwarted by a system that had failed him at every turn. Jonah Davis's death was a tragedy born of neglect, control, and misplaced trust. His story serves as a chilling reminder of the vulnerabilities faced by children in the foster system and the importance of vigilance in protecting those who cannot protect themselves. This has been the story of little Jonah Davis, a boy whose light was extinguished far too soon. Let his memory be a call to action for us all. Evelyn Carter's life was a balance of dedication and joy. At 23, she had already made a name for herself as a beloved elementary school teacher in Amberton. Every day, her routine reflected her passion for life, teaching her students, preparing creative lesson plans, and ending her evenings with a jog through Whispering Woods. To Evelyn, the woods weren't just a trail. They were a retreat, a sanctuary of peace where the hum of daily life faded into the soft rustling of leaves and birdsong. On the evening of her disappearance, Evelyn followed her usual pattern. She smiled as she tied her shoelaces, waved goodbye to her roommate Megan, and set out for her run with her headphones in place. The sunlight filtered through the trees, casting golden hues on the dirt path. Regular hikers and joggers greeted her as she passed. This was her haven, her escape. But as the sun dipped lower and shadows stretched across the forest floor, the tranquility of the woods took on an unsettling air. Evelyn's trail, once familiar, now seemed distant. And as the clock ticked on that evening, Whispering Woods would transform from a place of serenity into a scene of horror. When Megan realized Evelyn hadn't come home, her initial worry gave way to panic. It wasn't like Evelyn to stay out late without letting someone know. Megan called her repeatedly, but the calls went straight to voicemail. As midnight approached, Megan's pacing turned frantic, her phone clutched tightly as she texted Evelyn's friends, hoping someone might have heard from her. By morning, Evelyn's absence was undeniable. Megan contacted the police, and soon, Amberton was buzzing with concern. This small, close-knit town wasn't used to tragedy, and whispers of fear began to spread. Search parties were quickly organized, with volunteers combing through the dense woods. Flashlights cut through the early morning mist as searchers called out Evelyn's name, their voices echoing off the trees. For 2 days, hope held strong. Friends and neighbors clung to the belief that she would be found safe, perhaps injured but alive. But on the second day, hikers stumbled upon a gruesome discovery in a secluded part of the forest called Sparrow's Hollow. Evelyn's lifeless body lay beneath a blanket of fog, her arms crossed over her chest. A single red carnation rested atop her still form, a chilling message from her killer. Detective Marissa Hayes, known for her meticulous approach, took the lead in investigating Evelyn's murder. The crime scene offered few clues, but its eerie precision was unmistakable. Evelyn's body had been positioned carefully, almost ceremonially, and the red carnation placed on her chest seemed to be a signature, a calculated message from the killer. As investigators delved into Evelyn's life, an unsettling detail emerged. Megan revealed that Evelyn had been receiving anonymous notes in the weeks leading up to her death. These messages, delivered to her apartment, ranged from poetic admiration to unsettling threats. One note read, "Not all admirers are harmless." The handwriting was jagged, as though written in a frenzy, and each note deepened the growing unease. Detective Hayes began piecing together Evelyn's final days. Interviews with friends and co-workers painted a picture of a young woman who was kind, driven, and unaware of the storm brewing around her. But Evelyn's world had become intertwined with someone whose admiration had taken a sinister turn. Now it was up to Hayes to untangle the web of obsession that had led to Evelyn's death. The investigation quickly honed in on 3 suspects, each with potential motives and unsettling connections to Evelyn. First was Bryce Turner, Evelyn's ex-boyfriend. Their relationship had ended months earlier, but Bryce hadn't taken the breakup well. Known for his fiery temper, he had been seen lingering near her apartment on several occasions, raising suspicions about his intentions. Victor Ramos, the groundskeeper for Whispering Woods, was another person of interest. Victor was a loner, often seen patrolling the trails, his denim jacket covered in odd patches. Some joggers had reported feeling uneasy around him, and his familiarity with the woods made him a viable suspect. Finally, there was Pauline Grant, a local florist who had a peculiar obsession with true crime stories. Pauline's flower shop often displayed red carnations, and her frequent visits to the woods raised eyebrows. She was known to have interacted with Evelyn in passing, though the extent of their relationship was unclear. Detective Hayes meticulously investigated each suspect, digging into their pasts and their alibis. Tensions mounted as the community watched the case unfold. Each suspect had secrets, and each seemed capable of harboring the dark obsession that had ended Evelyn's life. The case took a significant turn when a wildlife photographer came forward with footage captured the night of Evelyn's death. His motion-activated camera had recorded a grainy image of a shadowy figure dragging a form through the woods. The person wore a denim jacket with distinctive patches, pointing directly to Victor Ramos. Police raided Victor's cabin and uncovered a collection of unsettling items. A notebook filled with dark poetry and a vase of red carnations seemed to confirm his involvement. However, DNA testing failed to match Victor to the evidence found on Evelyn's body, forcing investigators to reevaluate their assumptions. Detective Hayes' instincts turned toward Pauline Grant. A search of Pauline's flower shop uncovered crucial evidence. Drafts of the anonymous notes sent to Evelyn, and, most damning of all, Evelyn's missing phone hidden beneath a pile of flowers. During interrogation, Pauline broke down, confessing to the crime. She admitted to being obsessed with Evelyn, seeing her as a muse and an ideal that needed to be preserved. When Evelyn didn't reciprocate her admiration, Pauline's obsession twisted into rage. Pauline's confession provided closure, but it didn't erase the pain left in her wake. Evelyn's tragic death revealed the devastating consequences of unchecked obsession, leaving Amberton forever changed.